As the popular children's author Dr. Seuss once wrote, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get any better. Friends, the easiest thing that one can possibly do is complain. There are always going to be negative things in our life that we can point out. Negatives in our culture, in the home, in the church, and really anywhere else. And to complain is to say that something needs to change. That things are not satisfactory as they are, that something's got to give. Well, the question at that point is one that is very simple. Do we care enough to do something about it? Noticing a problem and complaining about it means I care at least a little bit. But the real issue is whether we care enough to roll up our sleeves and get to work and make a difference. In the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, we see a perfect example of how much can be accomplished by God-centered people who truly care. Friends, this is the church's greatest need in this age as well as in any other age. The setting finds the Jewish people still largely in captivity in Persia after the fall of Babylon. The temple is gone and Jerusalem lies in ruins, and the book of Ezra begins with a return to rebuild the temple. But the effort stalls out due to interference and official decree, and as we read in the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, disinterest. Well, Nehemiah begins with a report regarding the state of utter disrepair of the walls of Jerusalem. And it's when these two men come on the scene that things begin to change. Ezra is introduced as a man who had set his heart to study and to practice God's law and to teach the people God's statutes, Ezra 7 and verse 10. Nehemiah's story begins with him weeping, mourning, fasting, and praying upon hearing about the walls of Jerusalem. The bottom line, these two men cared greatly about the state of the Lord's house. Well, most importantly, they cared enough to do something about it. In their own separate ways, both men led the push toward restoration through all kinds of challenges, both external and internal. And broadly speaking, Ezra led the people spiritually while Nehemiah led the people administratively, resulting in not only a new temple and a new wall for Jerusalem, but a restored practice of the feast days and the Sabbaths and the tithes before God. And they accomplished all of this through hard work, perseverance, and their principles, but most importantly through prayer. But the characteristic that tied all of these things together, in fact, the characteristic that drove all the others, was how much they cared. Now, examining ourselves and our situations, what is there that needs changing in our lives? What is it that we find ourselves complaining about? Well, certainly some things are completely out of our control. But there are many things that God has placed within our sphere of influence. In our homes, the church, the neighborhoods that we live in, our workplaces, and even in society in general, there is always going to be much work to do. But there is also plenty of comfort right now, which makes moving forward challenging. And once we do begin to move, we find distraction and resistance, much like we see with Sanballat and Tobiah that they brought in the way of Nehemiah's cause. But the point is, there will always be excuses and even reasons to not do something or to give up prematurely. But if we care enough, then those things will not stop us. They will not hold us back. But the question to each Christian remains the same. Do we care enough to be used by God to make a difference? Does the success of His kingdom mean enough to us to move us forward in active obedience? We need more Ezras. We need more Nehemiahs. And we need people with a mind to work. But we must ask ourselves, will we rise to the occasion and strive to build up the house of God, which is the church? Friends, we want to thank you for joining us for our program today, and we pray that God blesses you with a wonderful day.